One is overview of SAP VIM solution, how VIM addresses account payable challenges, VIM process overview. So we'll be talking from ingestion to the payment. Payment is a little bit early, but we'll try to address how much involvement is there and all those things. VIM components and architecture. SAP documents posted, what's a posting document and what's this is, and then VIM users, what kind of users we have in a VIM solution. Okay. So overview of a VIM solution. What is VIM? Vendor Invoice Management. Okay, this is a product from OpenText, built on SAP and sold by SAP itself. So they are the platinum partner, and officially SAP supports this solution. So whenever you raise a ticket on OpenText VIM solution, it will be raised through the SAP itself, and it goes from the backend, it goes to the OpenText, and then they resolve it from the backend. Okay. But from the customer perspective, it is just another solution sold by SAP only, and they support with the same SLAs and everything. That's why it is called SAP VIM solution, and sometimes a OpenText VIM solution as well. Okay, this is completely integrated into the SAP, and it is completely built on top of SAP. So the solution sits on the SAP. You will be seeing the same SAP screens, Fiori apps, and everything same on the same lines of the SAP. Okay. And what is, if you want to describe from the functional perspective, what is VIM? It's a workflow-based solution with pre-configured rules, goals, and actions, where you can try to optimize and automate end-to-end processing from ingestion to the posting of SAP, or we can say invoice in the SAP system. Okay, so that's a quick one-liner of what a VIM solution is. Okay, so and the solution primarily started as invoices, and over a period of time, they have grown to support even the sales orders, delivery notes, support custom document processes. Like the solution can be utilized to ingest any kind of document, and you can do extraction of the data, and you can try posting of the data. Okay, but for our session, we are only going to cover the invoices only. So in the last few years, what they did is they have split the solution or talked the solution in two parts. Previously, it was just called as SAP VIM solution. Now it is called SAP Foundation and SAP VIM solution. SAP Foundation is going to support sales orders, delivery notes, and any custom processes, and VIM solution is going to support the invoicing process for SAP. Okay, and that's about quick introduction of what's a VIM solution for a for the first time we'll see what a VIM solution is. And okay, now we'll go why vendor invoice management solution is needed. So whenever you talk about an invoice in an organization, or how you are implementing, the invoice is a primary responsibility. Generally comes to the finance team or accounts payable team, or any team they can call it, but generally they call them as accounts payable, because they are the ones who are going to pay to the vendors or the business partners whenever the invoice comes into the organization. Okay, but for them to post the document into SAP, they generally need to verify the document, contact multiple persons, and understand how they want to post, whether amount paying, because you're paying or you're giving the money from your organization to a different team. So you should know that they are doing exactly correctly without overpaying or underpaying the vendors or business partners. So this is the reason there will be multiple involved from different departments to process one invoice. We can take multiple examples, like purchase order based invoices. If they want to post, they should know that how much goods or services they have received for them to post the document into the system. Okay, and since a lot of people are involved, you can expect to distribute the said document in each person. It can go in multiple ways, like the same document can be copied and given to multiple departments so that they can store it, or the same document goes in step-by-step process from one team to other team and finally reaches the accounts payable team for them to push the process. Okay, so the same thing, right? One invoice can be copied and stored several times in most organizations. Without a proper invoice management system, the overall cycle takes too long and would require large amount of manual activity. Without the VIM solution, how you can think is basically SAP supports posting of the invoice into the system. Okay, and now to come the document to the actual accounts payable, it may go through multiple teams, multiple approvals or acknowledgements from different persons, and the overall cycle may take. Based on my experience, before implementation of VIM and after implementation of VIM, it used to go before it may an average of 10 days for an invoice to get posted in an organization. But once the VIM is implemented, it may take it will come down to, depending on how you're configuring and on how it is doing, it will come down to 1 to 3 days and an average, depending on how many exceptions or how many rules you are going to configure. There are some organizations, if the invoice is pretty much good and all the data is available, it can even post in a minute or 2 minutes as well. Okay. Manual activities, in case many not necessarily reduce or prevent duplicate payments, posting, and even lost invoices. This is the classic example of saying that accounts payable team just says, I have not received the invoice, I cannot post. And that document may be sitting on some purchase order team desk or something like that, and he forgot to send it to the accounts payable team. So that's just some classic examples. And sometimes you may end up doing the duplicate payment, the invoice is received, and the vendor, because there was a delay from the customer side, and sometimes what vendors do, they send another same copy of the invoice second or third time as well, and without knowing, they even post the document twice into the system without verification. There are some checks available in the SAP itself, but they're not up to the mark, or they have to customize the solution to really make to match the duplicate payments in the system. Okay. So that's a high-level overview of the VIM solution. And coming to the VIM solution, how exactly and what are the benefits of the invoice solution? So first thing is, it will accelerate your operations. As I was just giving example from the previous slide, that your invoice posting, or if you take that as the KPI or the indicator, that how much time it is taking to post, it may come down drastically from an average 10 days to an average 1 or 2, 3 days. Okay, so with this, your accounts payable team will be easily able to pay the vendor on right time and the right amount. Okay, so with that, the first important thing is vendor relations. This will really impact the vendor relations, and it will improve the vendor relations. Boost productivity and revenue. As I said, as they are being on time, the customer orders, rotation, and the money, cash pooling, and everything happens on the right time. So the customer and supplier relations are better, and the productivity of the accounts payable team also increases, because they doesn't, as the VIM solution is going to do some work for you, like validations and everything. So there will be a less burden on the accounts payable team. They doesn't need to verify, and they doesn't need to route the invoices manually, like say non-VIM invoice world. Whenever there is an issue, what is the accounts payable supposed to do? Either they send the physical copy back to the purchasing team, and they re-verify and come back, or give a phone call or send an email. If you make a phone call, the chances of getting him on phone and all the dependencies will be there. If you send an email, it will be sitting in the inbox. And even if you go very large complex organization, your purchase order team may be sitting in a completely different location or location, and your accounts payable team may be sitting in somewhere else. So sending physical copies and all will be a time-consuming process. So it obviously will increase your productivity as well. Ensure compliance. The third one is compliance. So when the primary job of the accounts payable team is posting of the document, and to ensure that the document is posted as per the rules and regulations agreed upon. So this is where your VIM solution comes in, try to automate a lot of rules and regulations, and raise flags if there are any issues, and if there are any complaints, so that the respective user can take the immediate action. So that is where the ensure compliance is taken part by the VIM solution. Get fast results. As accelerate operations is directly linked to the fast results. So their pre-configured solution will pre-verify a lot of data and segregate the data and route the data to the right team at the right time, so that they can tag the responsive respective action from them. And there are some tools in that as well to send reminders, emails, so that if the sitting in one of the user invoices and then it is not working, if that user is not taking any action, you can send a reminder email, and you can try to copy the manager as well to send an email, and then try to get the information, so that there is a clock ticking on them, and they know that if they have not taken action, that it will be recorded into the system, and they will try to take action. Depending if there is a really a valid reason why they are not taking action, then there is not much we can do. But if unnecessarily they are wasting time, that everything is recorded, and then with the solution you can easily get the faster results. And the fifth one is constantly optimize workflows. So as I was telling from the previous slide, Vim has a lot of large set of reports as a part of Vim solution. Those go in detail or to the level we will be astonished to see how much amount of data the reports give. So with that, if they can work on regularly, then they can really optimize the solutions. They assume that if they run those reports every 6 months and try to take respective actions on them, then they can really optimize the flow, and then they can reduce the posting cycle to very minimal as well. Okay, so that's what this constantly optimize the workflow helps in. This is where the supporting the involvement and improving the overall solution helps.
I have a query which is related to the components. So as you said, we are taking the framework of Vim, like most probably invoice management foundation, then we are processing sales order, right? Yeah, like how is it different with O2C invoice management component or P2P external components? How is it different?
Okay, so if I have to give on a high level, the foundation solution is, Vim solution is a pre-configured solution. It primarily targets the SAP invoices, which is related to the P2P cycle. Okay, so here it comes with all the pre-configured rules and regulations, so that you can just go configure and run the solution. Now, coming back to the foundation will take care of extracting the data, and it's not a pre-configured solution. You can use that solution to enhance or suit the solution. It's more suit to build solution, right? Whenever you can create a new archive doc type, and then what you can say is, if it is a sales order, you have to train the OCR solution to extract the data. There is no pre-configured like the system tool itself identifying the vendor number or like that. There is nothing in the foundation. So it's just a foundation, and over a period of time, I know that they are going to bring that solution. So foundation is more, you can say, to ingest any document into your system. Assume that sales order came. What sales order is generally issued by the customer to, I mean, us as an organization, we are going to send it to the customer, and then they are going to reply back or accept that invoice. So you can proceed with the next step. So that's how our delivery note. Assume that even in the P2P cycle, before GRM, there will be a lot of organization which work on the inbound delivery note, right? So the inbound delivery note in each country will have a different kind of rule. So you can configure your solution and try to post an inbound delivery automatically based on the document receiving from the vendor. So that's an example. And also on the same line, sales order. Anything you can use the foundation solution to ingest a document and then post a document. So you will not have any for posting the document, say inbound delivery, right? As Vim solution used to support a B60 or a Vim, you will not have anything there. You have to create a new BDC for yourself or write a BAPI for yourself and integrate into that foundation solution. That's the primary difference between the foundation and the Vim solution. And
okay, clear. It's more into capturing of details and then customizing it. That understood. But how it is different with this O2C? Most probably the sales order comes under this component, right?
Foundation, yes.
Yes. Yeah. So how does this component differ to this solution? Like I just pasted some other components. We do have the components. Why we are not opting for that solution? Instead, we are going for a foundation. Sure. That's my query.
And I didn't get your question. So for
like
invoice.
Vim, like Vim, we do have other components, right? O2C, P2P, which OpenText offers. Like why instead we are going for an standard OpenText support? We are relying on Vim Foundation and customizing it to a sales order or P2P.
See, this foundation solution is not going to replace what OTC cycle is doing. It is only going to post a document or do the automation of the SAP solution. And
Okay.
the difference.
Yeah,
so, for posting, say for inbound delivery, right? So the transaction is going to same whether you are going to do it manually or whether you're going to do with the Vim Foundation solution is the difference. When you are trying to automate, assume that you can write your own custom solution with an Excel and inbound thousands of inbound deliveries. It's the same thing you are trying to do with the foundation solution. In the foundation solution, you have the OCR, you have the workflow solution to configure. So it's easier. I mean, you opted for when you want to have the routing mechanism and the extraction. These are the two primary things from the Vim solution, right? So if you want those solutions to be utilized, you can use the foundation, okay? As you already bought the Vim solution, foundation is already available. There is no additional license or I am not sure exactly, but you can really utilize that solution and you can reuse rather than reinventing the whole wheel of for the inbound delivery or something like that. Okay, so that's the idea of that foundation solution.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Okay. And going to the next slide. Now we'll go through several of the accounts payable challenges and how Vim solution addresses that. Okay, so I mean, I would have tried to give some examples in the previous slide, but let's go through the same thing. So the first major challenges is the effective operations of the accounts payable department. To an average, any organization may have an accounts payable team size from 5 to 20 or 30 people at large, depending on the size of the organization and operation and everything. And there can be different ways this account payables team work, like depending on how many countries they are working, how many locations they are working. There can be a centralized accounts payable team, there can be localized team, and some company codes follow mixed, like some company codes have a centralized team and some company codes will have a local team. So this is how the complex accounts payable teams will be there. And once you have the accounts payable team, and then we have different kinds of invoices which come into the picture, like purchase orders, non-purchase orders, and advance payments as well. If you go again, try to split this into multiple things. In the purchase order itself, you see domestic and international, and you will see domestic materials, domestic services. In the same lines, international services, international materials. And if you further go down, there are kind of different kind of purchase orders from the P2P cycle, like a purchase order, consignment, and everything. Different kinds of purchase order scenarios will be there. So all these things, when you come back, who is going to post the invoice? It's the accounts payable team. And how that split also happens. Assume that in the central, and I'm just taking an example here. If a central accounts payable team is set up, okay, and you have a team size of 10, you would say, hey, volume also matters here, right? So assume that the domestic invoices are taken by these 5 and the rest of invoices are taken by the rest of 5. So like that, you'll split, I mean, imaginarily that this team cares of this team cares of this, and the invoices, when they come, somebody has to segregate and distribute them. So this kind of lot of paperwork and paper-based invoices will be there. There will be a lot of exceptional scenarios. If you take an example of international service-based invoices, there will be, you have to deal with the tax team, you have to deal with the person who actually received the services, whether they have received all the services in paper. How are you going to verify the services or receipt, whether a service entry sheet is being created or two-way match, three-way match. So I'm just giving a lot of terminology here, which we are going to try to talk about everything in the coming sessions. So this is how the complex accounts payable team in day-to-day operation they deal with, and there are chances of higher error rates and strained vendor relationships. Strained vendor relationship primarily comes with the payments. If the vendor is paid on time, their relations are generally good, and if there are delays, the chances that vendors say, I don't want to work with this customer because the payments are not coming on time, kind of scenarios you get. So it all boils down to one of the parameters, invoice payment on time, and that's how the accounts payable team need to manage. This is one of the major accounts payable challenge. Accounts payable team has a challenge. Okay. And when they're dealing, I'll just run through this text here. The common challenges in large organizations worldwide include high costs related to paper invoices, exceptional cases, non-compliant issues, and lack of control. These challenges not only disturb day-to-day operation, but also lead to delayed payments, heightened error rates, and strained relationships. One more important parameter generally there too, like I was trying to tell you about how much time it takes to post the invoice, and there is another parameter which generally they calculate, like how much cost it is happening to just post the invoice. There are organizations who spend around $7 per invoice to post, cost for them to post an invoice. Okay, so with billing coming in them, then their cost has reduced to $1 or something like that. So that's an average when one of the white papers OpenText has published. Okay, and okay, and now the next challenge is paper-based. Even like an example of India, the majority of the invoices are paper-based. Like you get a soft copy or a paper which comes into your organization, just forward that, and you get an invoice in the paper mode. So getting the data in paper mode is highly challengeable to the constable because they have to look at the document manually and enter the data manually into the system. Okay, which is a major time-consuming process, and chances of with the high errors. They can just enter any data, like instead of putting 1,000 rupees, they can put additional zero and all those things as well. Okay, and with Vim coming into the solution, the extraction of the data happens from the Vim OCR solution, and it can streamline the operation. If the Vim solution can extract at least 50 to 80% of the data, the rest of the data can be either pre-filled by your solution or manually entered, depending on the team and all those things, what kind of document you are handling with. So shifting from paper to digital process will yield various advantages, such as decreased storage expenses and reduced errors arising from the automation of the invoicing process. With paper coming in also, there are rules on every country that because you paid based on the document, you are supposed to retain the document for a certain point of time. There are organizations, and depending on the country, they may expect you to store the document up to 5 years or 7 years in some storage space. Okay, but with the digitalization, the good part is you still may need to follow the country-based regulations, but you have all the everything in the Vim solution, so that very rarely you go back to that storage solution and try to retrieve that document. Okay. There are even tools available in the Vim solution where the barcoding can be put onto the document, and then you can have that barcode number on your Vim solution. When really the retrieval needs to done, then you can simply go and try to understand the location of that and simply retrieve that document as well. So paper-based to digital process is one of the primary challenges which can be reduced by the solution. For example, you have paper documents, again, digitalization or ingestion. There is a tool called Enterprise Scan from the Vim solution where you can do mass digitalization of those paper-based documents as well. There are some tricks we have to do while we are doing that, but yes, we can easily do that. Just put all the document invoices into the printer and click of a button. It will start ingesting all those invoices into the SAP system. Okay. And the next one, the exceptions. So as we have been talking about this from the slide one, that one of the primary responsibility of the accounts payable person is to verify the data. Okay, so verify the data when an accounts payable team verifies the data, assume that you got a purchase order based invoice, okay, which is a material based. Then what you do is basically verify whether a GRN is done in your system, whether a 3-way match is completed, whether the vendor number is correct, their tax number is correct. If an example of India, you'll be talking about the GST number is correct or not, whether they have raised to the right company code, or if they have sent it on a different GST number. If you take an example of India, then we have each state will have a different GST number, right? So that's the reason they have, even the vendor is same, then the GST number will be different. And each organization in India deals with the GST number differently. Okay, assume they can create 2 different business partners for each. Like example, if the vendor is working in 2 separate states, then you create 2 business partners in the system. Okay, to represent one for each state as a different, even though the legal entity is same from the vendor perspective, but how you deal with that. So these kind of exceptions all will come into the picture. That's just an example. And the pricing disparities, like whether the vendor has raised the invoice on the right amount, which is agreed upon on the purchase order, or he has sent over the amount, like say, even though assume that you are dealing with a vendor where you regularly buy the stock, and you have an agreement that the next 1 year you are going to sell me with this price, and over a period of time, after 6 months, then he has increased the price of the product, okay, because of the market conditions and everything. And then what happens generally, he will send you the invoice with a higher amount. Now you have to deal with this, because the accounts payable process, they have to check why he has sent. Now they have to reach out to the purchase order team, and the purchase order team will contact the vendor. Now there are 2 chances here. Either purchase order team can convince the vendor to continue the old price, or they can agree to the new price and continue. In this scenario, what are the outcomes in the SAP solution? If it is a new price, then you have to modify your purchase order to the new price, and the vendor also has to send a new invoice again you just need to change the purchase order in the amount. If it is the old price, then you doesn't need to change anything from your end, but the vendor has to send the new invoice to you. You obsolete the old invoice in your system. So this how each scenario is so unique, and the outcome of each scenario will be 2 or 3 outcomes, and depending on that, your VIM solution has to take care of all these exceptions, or the user has to click the button on the VIM solution to go through this route or something like that. And these are multiple the exceptions are handled in the system, and there are n number of exceptions pre-configured. There are roughly 200 exceptions by SAP VIM itself or OpenText VIM solution, and we can even configure custom exceptions into the system here. Okay, so that you can proactively minimize the exception and try to communicate with the vendors or internal teams in resolving this. And the next important parameter is discount opportunities. Okay, so this depends on organization to organization how we want to deal with cash management. Okay, what this example, I'll try to give a couple of examples here. One is some organization will say we'll pay on as is agreed date, like based on the payment terms. If you know what payment terms is, basically whenever you receive the goods or services and you send the invoice, once you receive the invoice, you have to pay the vendor within a specified terms. For example, there will be a payment terms of 30 days or 45 days or 15 days, or payment of 50% in the 15 days and rest in the 45 days. So this can be different kinds of payment terms will be there in the purchase order or a non-purchase order, what you agreed upon with the vendor. Okay, and you have to pay it accordingly. And now from the vendor perspective, they will come, okay, these are my payment terms, and I will also give you more advantage if you pay me early. Okay, I'll give you a discount of 5 to 10%. Say if my payment terms are I have sending you the goods of 1 lakh rupees, and then you have to pay me in 30 days. And if you can pay me in 10 days, I am okay to accept at the 95,000. I'm giving 5,000 discount. So these kind of payment discount opportunities are primarily available in the Western countries, not in India or something like that. But here in India also, what they do is assume the vendor has like 10 or 15 invoices. Okay, now your team would like to get a discount. You can just call the vendor, hey, I have 10 invoices of you and its value is around 5 to 10 lakhs, and I would like to get some discount. Would you like to give some discount? So this solution, there is a complete solution called discount opportunity or discount configuring. Basically, what it says is raise a green or red traffic light that you can apply, get a discount on this particular invoice. It's a very simple solution to just put configure the raise the flag or traffic light when you can get a discount on it. So there are reporting tools there. The accounts payable team can run those reports and say, hey, whether I can get a discount on this, whether I can talk. Okay, so that's what. So but without the VIM solution, gathering this data is nearly impossible because the data is not located at one place. The invoices can be digital or physical or whatever it is, and it can be with the different persons as well. So your accounts payable team is dealing with as I said, the team size of, for example, of 10 and 5 are dealing with the domestic, and there are 30 invoices of particular vendor, and it can be spread across these 5%. And there is no way you can think of saying, hey, I have to collect all this information from these 5% and try to correlate and adjust the data to get that discounts. So with the VIM solution, you have all the centralized data. All the invoices are available in the reporting tool, and you will quickly easily see what are all the open invoices and who has large amount, and if you can try to get the discount based on the payment types. Okay, so this is just a couple of examples which we talk about how discounts can help the organization, and it also depends on how the organization want to deal. It all depends on whether the vendor wants to, as a vendor, he wants to have the cash early, or whether he is to get the full cash with adjusted payment terms. So it all depends on business scenario, organization, and the vendor as well. Okay, and so this is what 80% of the early payment discount opportunities are missed. This is how the VIM solution can help you here. Okay, so the next one is matching and approval. This is basically here it says invoice payments on time. If the payments are not done on time, then they can drag you to the court or get more interest. The other part of your payment, they can even agree on time as well that if they are not paying, they have to put additional interest to compensate the vendor. So there can be a lot of rules and regulations based on the country as well. So this is what this slide is talking about. The contract leakage occurs when invoice deviate from the terms and conditions specified in the contractual agreement with the vendors. This can result from errors related to pricing, quantity, discounts, or other complicated contractual obligations. So such discrepancies between the invoice and the agreed upon terms lead to payment inaccuracies, disputes, and financial losses for both the parties. So if you talk about a material-based invoice which came in, and your internal team says that we just talk about some material in tons. Okay, vendor says I have sent you 10 tons and this is my invoice, but your procurement team or on-ground stores team says that I have only received 9.8 tons of material. Okay, now who is going to deal and who is not going to deal? And either you can put the invoice on hold, or you can pay up to 9.8 tons, and the rest you can put into we can say a dispute or something like that, and you have to deal with it outside the VIM solution. I'm just giving an example how the real world scenarios will be there. So these kind of things are disparities and can lead to a lot of complexities and financial loss for both parties. Okay, so the vendor, if the organization is not at all paying the 9.8 tons, or they will only pay the amount once the dispute is resolved, then that can lead to financial loss and to the vendor. If the vendor thinks that this particular organization is unfair, they can even go to saying that you are unnecessarily blocking my payments and kind of things. So VIM solution kind of helps in kind of speeding up these discrepancies or raising these flags on early stage so that they can take those actions easily from the VIM solution. So the solution is overcoming the challenges involving implementing robust contract management practices, integrating automated validation system with the vendor invoice management system, and promoting effective communication with the vendors to proactively address and prevent contract leakages. Okay, so this is just an example which we talked about how a VIM solution can address some of the discrepancies using the exceptions available from the VIM solution, and you can even use some of the other features like sending emails from the VIM solution that can be customized to send additional emails to the vendors and pre-informing that there is like an example of RTB, we call it return to vendor, saying that, hey, there is a discrepancy. I'm informing you that there is a discrepancy, and this is the reason I'm only going to either pay you or send me a new set of invoice and all those things, which we'll talk about when the RTB comes into the slides. Okay. And so VIM process, now we just talk about the accounts payable process, right? So how the accounts payable team is going, what are the major challenges, and how they are managing it, and how the real life examples which we talked about. Now, what is a VIM process overview? Ingestion to payment. Payment is a tricky term here, but we'll see how much the final payment. The VIM is primarily focused on ingestion till posting of the invoice, and then they may not deal with the payment. It only helps in the payment process. Okay. And introduction is basically, we talked about this. It automated invoice processing workflow offered by the vendor invoice management solution, typically integrated with the SAP system. It streamlines the entire invoice processing cycle from moment a paper or electronic invoice is scanned to the final payment being made to the payment. Our VIM solution here, it doesn't help in the payment process, but it will help you in the tracking of the payment. That's the reason they are saying ingestion to the payment. Now, if we talk about this, ingestion, once an invoice enters in your organization, the intention is that it should be digitalized immediately. Either it's a scan solution or a paper-based or electronic invoice, whatever it is. So a DP number needs to be generated so that it is available for tracking. Okay. And piece of the solution is invoice capture and preparation. These are the primary, once you ingest the document, like there can be different channels on the previous slide, which we talk about, like a email channel, paper invoice, iDocs, or Ariba, or any kind of thing. Once that is done, the next step for the VIM solution is capture and preparation. So here they're saying paper invoices scanned using enterprise scanner or a similar tool. I was telling about when you are trying to implement the VIM solution in any organization, with respect to the paper or invoices, the first question you have to ask, where are you going to set up your scanning solution implementation? There can be one place or multiple places or a central team, it all depends. Or you can have a decentralized paper invoice management teams, and then rest of the process as a separate team. So we can talk about depending on the organizations. Okay, so there will be an enterprise scan tool where we will be integrating that to the print scanner itself. So once it is integrated, then you put all the invoices into the scanner, and then at the click of a button, you'll be able to review the data and then push the data into the SAP VIM solution. Electronic service through various channels like email or ADA. So with respect to email, you create a generic email to from your organization. There can be some invoices like incoming invoices or something like that, where the vendors, they can just send the invoice directly to that email, or you can opt for saying that, hey, send it to the existing channels and then they will send it to internally. It's all the organization call on how you want to receive with respect to email. And the EDI is basically nothing but IDOC, whether you can receive that from different multiple partner channels like Hariba or something like that. So if there are any EDI invoices, why we are talking about EDI invoices? Because in Italy, some of the European countries, they support IDOCs, electronic. So between the vendors, and it's mandatory to go with electronic mode only. They receive in XML, and that XMLs are directly ingested into the system. There will not be any a document or anything like that. They just do directly the XML for the ingestion into the system. So XML and IDOC are more like a structured data, and because you know what the field is and what the field is talking about, and the chances of errors are less there. But email and the scan are unstructured data. They are more from the actual paper, and there has to be some extraction data, and then that will be transferred and more prone to errors. Okay. So BIM deals with all kinds of data, okay? Paper, electronic, or further processing, which may involve tasks like removing staples. This is the example they are giving, like if it is a paper based, they have to, some people would have stapled like 3 or 4 pages into one, and then second they have to remove, and papers have been in the proper format, and they have to put some of the documents to identify when the invoice is done, what is the supporting document. So we have different kinds of formats which will used in converting those papers into the digitalized format of the BIM solution. And data extraction and validation. So optical character recognition is the technology that extracts the data from scanned invoices and convert into the machine readable format or format. So OCR is the technology name, and our product from the SAP solution is called IES or IC4S. So IES is Information Extraction System, and IC4S is invoice capture for SAP solution. So IES is the name from the OpenText, IC4S is the name from the SAP. So from where your customer is bought the solution, VIM solution, your name differs. Otherwise, the product at the end of the day is same. If you bought the product from SAP, they call it as IC4S. If you bought the product from OpenText directly, they call it as IES. But both are one and the same products. Okay. And the extracted data is validated against predefined rules and compared with purchase order and other reference document to ensure accuracy and identify and discrepancy. This is the validation part which comes in the VIM solution, which they are talking about. Okay, OCR is the one which is going to extract the data and pre-fill that data into your SAP screens so that the rest of the validations happen against this data. So whenever you receive an invoice, you will only have some information on the invoice which will help in posting the document, and some information from your existing SAP data, like transactional data, like your purchase orders and everything, and some decisions and something you will be getting from people. So these are the 3 primary sources of information you get in the VIM solution, and you need to pre-validate, verify against this available information to process your invoice in the VIM solution. Okay. And workflow and approval. So as we have talked, VIM is a workflow-based solution. It uses the SAP workflow framework, and it is built on the SAP workflow framework. So however the existing SAP workflow works, the VIM solution also works in the same style. There is no change in it, like SAP rules or user management, and they reuse everything from the SAP workflow process. Okay, and they have created a layer on top of that so that we can pre-configure all these rules and approval hierarchies, and the routing mechanism happen based on the VIM configured VIM roles. So there are 2 pieces here. One is exception-based routing, and one is approval-based routing. Okay. One is exception-based routing. Whenever the exception is raised, then it will go to the pre-configured set of users where they have to tell the system. System says, I found an issue. This is an issue, probable issue. and the user has to take an action based on the information available, or he can refer to someone else in the system to get that particular decision to be taken. That is the exceptions when the action needs to be taken. But in the approval workflow, it is more like a informative or get the approval. Hey, this all is validated by the system on the set of users. Now you just need to approve for the posting of invoice into the system so that the payment when can happen and to pay the vendor. Okay. And so this is what a workflow, two types of workflows we have in general in the SAP system. One is a exception-based workflow, one is the approval workflow, and there is a third which is not mentioned here, but that is called as booster workflow. That is a very small piece of solution. Not many organizations use, but that is available and can be used as needed. Okay. And in the approval workflow, you can see the basic buttons like approve, reject, and query. So you can take every action with respect to the invoice on the SAP VIM solution. Doesn't need to do approval emails on email or a different solution, and they can just do at one place, and everything is documented into the VIM solution that you at what time and who has taken action and all this. Okay. And approval concept is a pure technical complex solution which can help simplify the process. Like there can be complex approval mechanisms, and all we'll talk about in the module 6 or 7 when we talk about the invoices process. Okay. And the next solution is piece of the information is payment process and archiving. And so once the validation and everything happens, then the invoices or the solution can help to post the documents automatically, or have a accounts payable person to re-verify the data and post the invoice manually. So there can be two ways. There is an automatic posting scenario where you can configure that solution as well to the level where only we post the automatic invoices to a particular set of vendors, or you can post the enable at the at a higher level, like at the company code level or the whole solution itself. Okay. And once the document is posted in the SAP, then the follow-up process is called payment process, which is the as-is solution of SAP, which the VIM solution has no role here. But the only thing what VIM does is in the vendor invoice management reporting solution, you can see whether the posted invoice payment is completed or not as well. So it just goes additional step to retrieve that information of the payment process is complete or not. Okay. So that's what they're talking about, why they say in addition to payment, in addition to payments. Okay. And archiving. Even though this is a step one, but it is written in the last. So all the invoices, when it is received into the organization, it will immediately archive, so that and just archive the PDF or converted PDF or format, and it is available in the digitalized form. The VIM solution, whenever you see, it will be like. So I was talking about the archiving process where the documents are archived and sit in a archive server. So this is a different technical piece of server which comes as a part of the VIM solution, where all your PDFs are stored in a different server rather than in SAP. So that's another crucial part, because once you start putting the documents or digital content into your SAP servers, the server size drastically grows at large. And SAP license also have another important parameter of size of the server. So especially in SAP HANA, the intent of putting the server size at minimum is one of the best criteria. So what for this, and it will become costly if the size of the server increases at large. So that's the reason what they are doing is basically they're putting all your scanned documents into a different server to have no impact on the existing SAP server size with respect to the digital content. Okay. And that's about payment processing and archiving. Okay. So this is a simple diagram on how the flow of the document in the SAP VIM solution happens. You can see here, and invoice sent via email. As I said, we create a generic email ID. The from your organization perspective, and the organization Outlook email or a Linux, whatever your organization is using, that email server will get the information, and that information your SAP existing solution of framework, where they have some configurations which your basis team does to take the content from the Outlook server, and that Outlook will take the documents from the Outlook server, and it will ingest the document into the VIM solution. So that's how the process is there. And once it ingests into the SAP VIM solution, the VIM solution will have the intelligent capture or IC4S, which will have the extraction or the OCR technology to extract that information and put it into the SAP VIM solution. This is where all the validation, workflow, approval, and posting happens. So this is the email flow, and here it is just more like the paper-based. Invoice is sent to your organization. It can be addressed to a company code address or a client address or a different person in your organization. What they all need to do is send to the scanner or the scanning solution team or the room, where they will scan all those documents and then put it into the SAP VIM solution. From here, the rest of the process is same. The ingestion mechanism will differ. If it is Ariba, there is direct integration into the VIM solution so that it will directly put the document into the VIM solution. Okay. The extraction from here and rest of the process is same irrespective of what channel we are using. And okay. Next is benefits of ingestion to payment. So we have talked about the problem statements, what are all the how they are achieved and how the VIM solution helps. Now, what are all the advantages which we talked about? As the problems, they are converted into opportunities, and this is where the solution comes in. One is increased efficiency. How is the efficiency is increased? Automate manual tasks like typing the data, data entry, or pre-filling some of the data into the SAP screens and all those things. So like this, like like you want to pre-fill the tax code for a specific set of vendors. Even if you're doing a manual entry, then you can also do it through the SAP solution, or the user has to do. But instead, you can also build the solution on the VIM side, so that all those tasks are manually automated. With this, your processing time increases, and you reduce the burden on the accounts payable team, and they can be utilized for more beneficial or strategic work rather than the boring, repetitive tasks. Okay, so like this, their efficiency is improved and accuracy is also improved. Reduces errors because you are prefetching the data from SAP, or your tool is trying to extract the data, and the validation happens, and it is pre-identifying the validation. Hey, this problem invoice has a problem with this particular data, so please take the respective actions. So assume that the accounts payable team, they may have an SOP right now that whenever the invoice is coming, I have to do all these checks. You can pretty much automate large section of those SOPs into the VIM solution, so that VIM solution will verify all those data and raise those respective errors into the system, enhancing visibility. This will provide the real-time tracking of invoice status and improves financial transparency. Assume that a invoice came into your organization and purchase order team has gone through its verification and then sent to accounts payable process team. Now, if the vendor wants to know the status of the payment, what he will do, he will call up the purchase order team or his counterpart, and he asks the status. Now, what will he do? He has to find where the document is in the organization and who it is working and all those things without the VIM solution. But with the VIM solution, you can just go and run a report and see where that particular invoice is, and he can give a guesstimate that, hey, we have done, there are no errors, and probably it will get paid on time or something like that. Or if he sees an error or exception raised, then he can either talk to the respective team or who the user this invoice is assigned to speed up the process. Or you can also have the vendor to get it corrected if you think that there is some mistake from the vendor perspective as well. So with this and enhanced visibility, like all the invoices can be seen at one place. Okay, it will reduce cost, save some paper printing and postage expenditures as well. So this is it's really because there are seen the organization in one of the big organization. What they do is, in this an example of India, they have some 7 or 8 plants in India. Once they receive the invoices, what they do is they repackage them and send it to a central location in Delhi, and then there they free up and then do the scanning. This is how they have been doing that for the last 10-20 years. The postage cost itself was at large amount per year for just transporting those invoices from all this location to a central location. So that was a huge saving for them. One of the key parameter for implementing that particular VIM solution is to save on the postage expenses. Okay, so that was just an example. And so this is basically VIM components processes on posting invoices in respect to SAP terminology. Till now, we have not talked about SAP terminology at all. We have general discussions on about how accounts payable process works in any organization, or how accounts payable have the problems or generic problems they have, and how the posting of an invoice, irrespective of whether they are using the SAP or any non-SAP, any other ERP or any tool, these problems and everything or the solutions are is the same. Benefits, VIM has specific set of benefits, and different tools may provide different set of benefits for each problem statements. And we have primarily talked about the benefits from the VIM solution in the previous slides. Okay, now components and architecture are the very high level here. So general P2P cycle we are talking about. This is not related to the NPO or non-purchase orders. In the purchase order base, generally what happens? Then generally we have something called purchase requisition, which we gets created. Purchase requisition is the document in your internal organization raising, hey, I need these kind of materials or services for me with the expected date. And that is converted into RFQs or quotations, where there will be a purchasing team. They will review all the purchase requisitions, and then they send the quotations to different vendors, and they accept the quotation from different vendors, and they will finalize on one of the vendor and convert that purchase requisition into a purchase order. And here in the RFQ process, there can be some automations as well, like predefined vendors can be configured so that whenever that it comes, that it will always go to that particular vendor, or the purchase order gets created from that vendor. Okay, so this is all the purchasing team generally takes care, or the purchasing group or organization which deals with this process. Once the purchase order is created, this is a legal agreement between the vendor and the organization, where with all the delivery dates and schedules, like when the material has to come and when the payment needs to happen. Once the purchase order created in the SAP terminology, GRN or the service entry sheet, goods receipt, like vendor sends his goods or delivers his services. And once that is done in the system, once the goods are received, then there is a transaction called MIGO that will create the goods receipt in your system, and it will be tied up to that particular purchase order. Okay, that is generally called a GRN. Once that GRN is created, the invoice also comes into the picture now. There will be different styles of invoice sending here. Some countries, like in India, your invoice will automatically come along with your goods. Some organizations or different countries, what they do is with goods, they only send the inbound delivery or a receipt challan, and the invoice they send later. as a different document. So once the invoice comes, irrespective of what style that come in, you use a transaction called Miro, MIRO, to create a invoice or post the invoice in our SAP system. When posting Miro, a purchase order number is mandatory. And this all P2P cycle depends of how you want to procure the goods or services. It all depends on your organization, whether you want to get that goods or service through a purchase order route or non-purchase order route. That's a different set of story and discussion, but these are the two styles will be there. Okay. These are the important steps in the P2P cycle of the invoice posting. And now there are a couple of slides on how components and architecture style, advantages of invoicing vendor invoice management from the business perspective. Now we talked about like how the flow will be there. So simplified process. If you are talking about a different user perspectives will be there in the organization, right? Like if it is a purchasing team, they want to understand where the invoice status is, or if they want to provide any information, they just need to provide that. If it is a finance team or accounts payable team, then they just need to, their primary job is to post the documents and achieve the efficiency of posting the invoices faster at the right time and with the right amount. If it is a tax team, they just want to know whether all the invoices, mainly on the audit perspective, on how they want to see whether all the invoices are posted with the right tax code or not. Okay. And if it is the audit team which comes in, they just want to know whether your overall flow is working properly or not, and whether they are posting, whether they are doing all the compliance related checks. So with this way, you will be able to have the control over all the necessary business information and simplify the overall process. Okay. And this is just another slide with the with the architectural technical components into the picture. Okay. So we have paper-based invoice, then we have something how we are going to, whether it say email, then if we have the attachment automatically. If it is a paper, it will be scanned. But once the scanning or the email comes, it will directly sit in the archive server. The first thing in Vim solution we generally do is called archiving the document once it receives into the SAP or the Vim system. With this archive ID or a tracking number gets generated and available for tracking. Okay, this archive server is sitting outside SAP system and directly integrated with your SAP system. So there is a seamless flow, and we call this process as called early archiving. There is late archiving as well, which we generally do it for Ariba or IDOC scenarios if needed, but they are not really required. Early archiving is basically, if you have to say, immediately create a archive ID or the archive the document in the SAP system so that it is available for rest of the process. And then archive server, and there is the Vim. Here we have put it only one box, but ideally this would be two boxes. One is called BC, Business Center, and one is SAP Vim. This BC will deal with the IES server and everything, and Vim solution is for the business users. So if you have to say what's the difference between a Business Center and a SAP Vim solution, Business Center is more for ingestion, extraction, and everything, where the technical activities are hidden in the BC framework, and Vim is a solution where business users will be primarily using. Okay, and the Vim solution is going to do all your exception handling, and finally it will be posted in the Vim solution as Milo. And so I know we talked about, and I tried to brief the same steps what we have here, but let me go through this slide so that how the vendor invoice manages the invoice for business and customers. So the first step is, this is from the Vim perspective. There can be P2P cycle, right? Or non-purchase order based process would have also happened, but we just want to talk about how the invoice flow happens in the organization. So once invoice is sent by the vendor, he can send it through email, paper, or fax. The first process is, if it is by paper, scanning process. It comprehensively scans the invoice, and the invoice enters the archive server, which I was talking in the previous slide. So either email or a scan or IDOC, it will archive the document. Or archiving is not just the PDF or anything, it can archive any kind of data as well, like even the XML can be archived into the archive server. So like that we do it. And once that is done, Vim there will be a ID generated, and Vim automatically archives the document and identifies with a 30-digit alphanumeric number. That is called archive ID, which gets generated and linked to your Vim solution or the BC framework, which we'll talk about in some time. And the management, and this document is automatically extracted the data, and it will push the extracted data into the SAP VIM solution. SAP VIM stores and identifies the document by a 12-digit hexadecimal number called the DP number. Okay, in the BC framework, as I was trying to talking to two pieces, one is called BC and one is called VIM solution. In the BC, the same document is tracked with a registration ID or reg ID, shortly we call it. And when it comes in the VIM solution, we call it as a document processing number or the DP number. Okay, so for each document, there are three numbers identified. One is the archive ID, that is the technical number which gets generated where it is actually sitting in the solution or the archive server. And the next one is called reg ID or registration ID. This is used in identification of the document through the BC process. In the BC process, we have this scanning and everything. And once this registration ID is converted into the DP number, once it moves into the VIM solution. So primarily we have three numbers for the same document, and there is a relationship between the DP number and the reg ID, and this 30-digit alphanumeric ID or archive ID will be linked to both reg ID and the DP number as well. I hope you're clear what are these three numbers. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
I have a query, like as you said, this IDOC and XML, we do have tagging, and then based on the tagging, it's generated doc ID in SAP, right?
Yeah.
And we don't have any PDF documents, whether we are getting the input in IDOC format. So if it comes into archival process, so as you said, these IDOC format get archived, or we generally assign a smart form. We generally assign a smart form based on this input to generate an PDF doc, right?
Yes.
So whether this tagging or this XML format get archived, or this PDF which we are creating it with the inputs of the IDOC, will this get archived?
Yes, that is called late archiving because your document IDOC got ingested, and then it created the Vim posting and everything happened, and then you are generating a document and storing it as a reference or more readable format for the users, right? That's the reason that is called late archiving, because it is getting generated and archived at the later point of time. And
okay, my query is whether this IDOC, we generally have the format, right? That format get archived, or based on that format, we generally create a PDF, right?
Yes.
So whether that PDF get archived, based on you, as you previously said, this IDOC details are get archived. I'm a bit confused.
See, IDOC already has the framework in the SAP solution for posting and everything. We generally, if you want additionally, you can archive it. Now, there is the XML process. XML can be archived automatically. And
okay, which means this PDF, which are being created from XML, is not getting archived. Only this, the input from other external system, the input will get archived, right?
Yeah, yeah. And
okay, we'll talk about that later. Yeah.
With the legality for the Italy, whatever the XML they have received, exact format they have to archive it and keep it in the server, because some discrepancy comes and they have to retrieve that XML and see what exactly they have received, right? IDOC, yeah. IDOC, it is already available in the IDOC format in SAP in ADA format or whatever. So that there is no specific archiving you will do, but if you want to do, there are custom solutions you can still archive that as well, depending on how the IDOCs or archived overall IDOC solution. IDOCs will use for other formats as well, right? At the organization level, they say you'll only keep the IDOC numbers for a year and you will delete. In the scenarios, what you do is we archive the DP number for only for the invoice perspective. So it depends, but there is no standard solution for IDOC to be archived. It have to little customized, but XML you can archive.
Okay, okay, we'll talk that in our upcoming sessions. Too early to ask. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And coming back to here, so IES we talked about, which is Intelligence Enterprise Suite for data extraction of the invoice and pushing that extracted data into the SAP streams. Now, what kind of information it extracts and all those things we'll talk about. But let's give some examples. The primary important 5 parameters is extracting the data for identification of the vendor number, extracting the data and identification of the company code, your invoice reference number, invoice date, and invoice amount. These are the 5 very important parameters which need to be extracted for posting the document. Rest of the information is needed or optional, or you can ignore depending on how much data you want to extract. But these 5 are primary and needed. And how the extraction of the identification of the vendor and what kind of information we'll talk about in the coming slides on the same lines. Okay. And now, once the data is pushed into the VIM solution, VIM finds any mismatched data, there will be validation of extracted data. So as we are going to configure the solution, we will be configuring these exceptions. Along with that, you can recreate the custom exceptions as well, depending on your organization. So all this will be validated. Once a exception happens, then it has to be sent to a set of users for resolution, because solution has identified, hey, I see an exception, what should you want me to do, kind of question triggers. So this is where the manual intervention is needed, and they will resolve through the multiple ways. We'll talk about what's the process option and everything. Okay, and once this are resolved, then we post the document through Miro or MP60. And there are 2 ways of posting. One is called online posting and one is called background posting, which we'll talk about that as well. I just talked about the last line about the early archiving, where the invoice is first early archived, and that's the reason we call it as the early archiving and stores in the archives. So now coming to SAP terminology of posting the invoices. Generally, we have 2 concepts previously in the old style, where you were dealing with 7.5 and below, parked and posting. Okay. Now, even though parking invoices is still supported by the SAP VIM solution, but it is recommended to stop parking the invoices through the VIM solution, because it's more kind of an obsolete version or obsolete version of parking. SAP itself recommends not to park the invoices, because there was one note, I cannot recollect it, but from the VIM perspective, your VIM document itself is a parked document in the VIM perspective. What is the usage of the parked document? It will not post the actuals into the SAP system. It is just holding the data to pass on between the users or team that this is a parked or yet to be posted document in the system. Now, on the same lines, the parking has been whenever I'm trying to implement, I will not say that use the parking invoice, and your DP document acts as your parked document, and all information is available in your parked document. So that's the reason parking approval, I recommend not to implement this parking invoicing solution, but still it is available as of now from the SAP VIM till I don't know how long, but they say that it is recommended not to use the parking invoice workflow in the current new solutions. Okay, and once this document, your DP document acts as holding the data, you do the corrections or data entry verification, and you get the approval workflows and verify that everything on this DP document and just get posted. Okay, that's how parking has been there, and how the parking in this slide, why I kept it, basically it has been there for last 7.4, where they used heavily the parking of the invoice because it was supporting. Right now, even though it is available, but we are trying to go away with the parking solution and just use the DP solution as a kind of a parking solution. Okay, that's my recommendation based on my experience. And as they talk about parking scenarios like partial data entry, the same thing, you can achieve everything in the DP document. They're talking about employee enters basic data but needs additional information before completing the document. The same thing you can achieve the thing in the DP document as well. Complex transaction, large invoices require multiple approvals are often parked for review. The same thing you do it in the DP solution. You can get approvals through the VIM solution itself. Once you are all the it is not posted. It is the document which is holding the data. You are sending that to the approval framework, and approvals. It can go multiple rounds of approvals, and then it can be posted. Discrepancies. So if any inconsistencies is found, we have the SAP VIM solution pre-configured rules itself act as our first check, and it will go for the second check accounts payable team to verify, and then you are going for the approvals, which is another set of users which will verify the data, and finally it gets posted in the system. So these many eyes or checks are happening. So that's the reason parking can be your DP document can replace the parking solution. Even though I'm writing it as parking advantages here, but the same whatever the advantages here we'll try to achieve through the same DP solution without the parking. Why I'm telling you that is the parking solution is there, but with the VIM solution coming in, there is no advantage of the parking solution. Whatever you want to do in the parking solution, you can do it in the DP solution. And there is the technical dependency. You need to create a parking document. There is a interaction between your VIM solution and the SAP. Every time whenever there is a change in data, it has to go and update the SAP parking document. And we have seen, based on our 10+ years of experience, that parking solution, not a single client has been very happy with that parking solution. Okay, there can be some discrepancies that the data is there in the VIM DP document or it is not updated properly. But while posting it, happily posts everything as good and good. But parking has that small features. Sometimes it may not show up in the parking document. Okay. And so the same thing, we talked about the scenarios here, and then they're talking about the data capture. Validation, VIM validates and extracted data, predefined rules and checks for missing information. Parking, the document process, it is parked in a temporary state, which your DP document also does that. Parked documents are visible in VIM but have not transferred to SAP or not yet posted to SAP to the accounts, GL accounts, or not reflecting in the actual posting. Reviewing and adjustment. While parked documents can be user can review the document details, corrections, add missing information, or attach additional documents. Everything you can do even on the same thing in the DP document. So this is my recommendation. And whenever I work everywhere, I always ask the customer to go away the parking process, and everything can be achieved through the VIM solution. Whatever they are doing right now with the parking solution, they can even do with the same DP solution. It will reduce the dependency on the technical implementation part, save your costs, and even the support costs as well, assuming that somebody raised, hey, my DP has this information and it is not there in the parking document. Okay. And posted. What is the posting step? As we said, this is the final step in the information parked document. This will actually post into the financial books that entries will get created in your GL accounts or whatever the cost objects which we are talking about. And then it will create the downstream process such as updating the inventory levels, accounting entries, and potentially initiating the payments whenever it is there. Okay. And it says that posting is the part of your official financial records. This is where your VIM process generally ends from the business perspective or the user perspective as well. And now, what happens during the posting? This is just the SAP terminology, irrespective of what VIM does or VIM is trying to do. Whatever the SAP is doing, VIM also doing the same thing. Assume that you are trying to post to FD60 or Miro. VIM also doing the exact same process and using the official SAP mechanisms to post the invoice into the SAP. So final verification, like what are the exceptions. Before posting, it will rerun all the exceptions once again and checks if all the traffic lights are green, and then only it will try to post the data. And assume that it found any issue at that point of time, it will reroute the whole workflow again to the users and all those things. And transfer to SAP. If final verifications are achieved, you can create the corresponding document type in SAP or document in SAP with the respective document type like the K or something like that, and populates with the extracted data. And also updates the workflows, like triggering the workflows in the SAP based, like if there are any closing the workflow or triggering the posted approval workflow or something like that. So this can happen, and that workflow also get updated until the final step of ending of the workflow happens in the system. And okay, so benefits of features of VIM. Till now, we talked about processes and everything and how a VIM solution works on high level. Now, we even talked about the benefits. Now, other benefits, there are few benefits which we want to highlight in this slide. One is integration. So even though we talked about this, we are just trying to highlight that keyword of integration, which is tightly integrated into the SAP solution, and every existing user can easily adopt to the VIM solution because it's just the same SAP screen and everything, and the flow buttons, everything. There's not much of training is really required. It will just they'll just take few hours to familiarize with the screens and everything, and the rest of the process is very simple for them with that integration. Optimization. So improve cash flow for streamlining workflows, initiating reminders, shortening the payment cycle. Basically, the key parameter here is posting lead time for posting the invoice document. And to increase that lead time or decrease the lead time or improve the reduce the lead time, we are streamlining the workflows and sending the reminding to the set of users to take the action as fast as they can, so that it will reduce the invoice posting time in your system. Okay, automation. We talked about this. It's like a boosting productivity, like extraction the data, pre-filling the data, verifying the data. So it is at least 50% of the accounts payable team's job through this solution, and rest is more like verifying the data and posting the data. Reporting. There is, as I said, reporting is very huge in VIM, and it will take a lot of information available easily, where the business users or IT team can run these reports and improve the overall process. Okay, there are two kinds of reports again in VIM. One is called regular reporting, and one is called central reporting. Regular reporting is nothing but your VIM analytics report, I am assuming, which you guys have used at large. And there is one central reporting, which there are a few set of jobs which need to be enabled for central reporting. Okay, when you do that, it aggregates the data, and that kind of gets more information or more meaningful information on available data. Like if I have to say productivity report, if you talk about the productivity report, I'm just giving an example here, you can go to the level of how much, assume that we created a team called accounts payable process team. You can see how much accounts payable process team is taking or acting upon an exception. Okay, so if a particular exception is raised, okay, that particular team, how much time they are taking, average time taking to resolve that. So there is a particular exception that tax code, invalid tax code. Now it is going to the accounts payable team. It will show to the level of like it is taking 1 day, 2 hours, and 3 minutes to average to resolve that exception by that accounts payable team. With this information, what you can do basically, you can deduce like how can we improve the accounts payable teams and efficiency time with that exception, why they are getting that exception, and how we can resolve it. There are multiple ways you can resolve that, like doing automation or identifying the problematic vendors, or due to, you can even say due to low capacity of the team. So if they increase, add 1 or 2 resources, it can. So there can be multiple ways, but that's how the data is available, and we can even work on those reporting itself. Okay. And so next slide. SAP solution features, major features like out-of-the-box scenarios, as we talked about, we can easily three primary invoice types which will be supported by the vendor invoice management solution. One is the purchase order-based invoices. Another is the direct invoices, or many people call it as non-purchase invoices. And the third one is the advance payment or the advance payments in the system. Okay, so these three kind of things Vim solution directly supports. You can just configure them and then easily implement these scenarios. Direct access to all information, as we had been talking about the analytics report or VA2 report, which we'll talk about again, but that is available across all the teams whoever has access, and there are company code level authorizations as well, so that the others cannot see that information as well. So information is available to everyone. Automation and collaboration. So automation is the IES, which is trying to automate some of the steps and the conflict step. Collaboration. This is another very, very important feature. Collaboration is nothing but teams coming together to try to solve one problem. This is the invoice posting. Now, as the accounts payable team, you have a doubt or you want to ask query, then you can collaborate or sending that workflow through the Vim solution directly to that user or the particular team, like sending to the tax team, hey, I have it out on this particular invoice, tax code, am I putting it right? Then you can directly send it to the tax team, and tax team can verify the data on the invoice, and they can just respond back saying that yes, this is correct, or you can change the correct, and then they can go ahead posting. That's just an example. And all this collaborated data or comments or approvals and everything is documented in the Vim system with the date and timestamp, so that whenever an auditor comes in, he can just look at an audit document. There is one document which gets generated if you enable the document. The PDF log gets generated. If you show the PDF log, then auditors are generally happy that everything is documented and they know why easily identify the information what they need. Okay. And the next one is machine learning and AI. This one we can talk in two phases. One is the IES system, where IES improves over a period of time on extraction the information. Previously, we had the BCC, which is in a completely redesigned into IES, where the extraction rates are really great than the older system. But there are some other disadvantages as well. We'll talk about when we come into that. And there are some artificial intelligence features also bringing by OpenText from the Vim perspective, like and the predefined. They're not much yet, but I think they may come up with some tools and everything. One of the things is in the non-purchase order invoices, where it will try to uh, recommend the cost elements which you want to use that particular invoice. Okay, that assume over a period of time for this particular vendor and company code, you are trying to use only this cost code, cost element or the cost center. Then, or the third or fourth time, it will automatically recommend this cost center automatically to you for posting. This is only available in the Fury app, not in the regular SAP Vim screens. Okay. There is another feature called auto coding or smart coding, where you can utilize or use for the same thing. But as of now, that's the only AI feature I know of in the Vim solution. Okay. And the next one is pre-configured rules, roles, and actions, which we are going to deal heavily in the next two sessions. What is a rule? What is a Vim rule? What's an action? And what are the terminologies for it? And how we are going to configure that. And the last is ECM integration. ECM is another tool from OpenText itself. It's called Extended Content Management. There is a direct integration with the ECM tool. ECM is a tool where you can manage the life cycle of a document. That is directly integrated here, and you have integration directly because both are from the OpenText itself, and then they can have direct integration. There is a other piece of solution called XECM, Extended ECM, Enterprise Content Management, that has to be installed. Once we install that and configure that, then it is a direct integration with that. Sure. And 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 okay, so I think we talked about this slide anyway. So what kind of e-invoicing is there and automated paper and the OCR process where it is talking about indirectly the structured and unstructured data. Structured data is where you get to the invoicing like a doc, XML, Ariba, where the data is coming in a structured format and you know what information is what, and then you know what to do with that information. And the basic cover, the first one is non-structured data where email in a PDF or scanning solution where paper to post invoice happens. So if e-invoicing comes into the picture, if it is coming with the structured data, then the involvement of the BC framework reduces at large because it's just only translating that particular piece of tag a particular item element directly into the BIM solution. If you talk about Ariba, there is no BC involvement at all. It will directly create the VIM document and it will try to post in the VIM document. There is not even touching of that in BC solution. If it is XML, you can even directly either you can go with the BC framework or you can simply technically create a VIM document directly through some function modules or something like that. So those two kinds of data, it will be structured and unstructured data. Okay. Now this is where I've been talking about what's a BC or ICC or SAP, how the overall solution is split into two things from the process-wise. This is where the slides which we talk about here at large. Now, if you see here, now it is split into 6 steps. One is prepare, transform, verify and complete, exception handling, approve, and pay. Prepare, we talked about, it is more scanning and archiving, incoming, how you ingest the document into the system. And 2 is transformation, which is where the IES walks into, comes into the picture, OCR extraction, and the validation client, and how the data is converted, verified, and sent it to the VIM solution. This is where the VIM solution starts here, verify and complete, where the exceptions trigger, exception handling happens, duplicate checks, and approval also happen, and then posting of the invoice happens, and the payment as is with that. Okay, payment is for reconciliation only. Okay, now these 6 steps are split into 2 pieces. One is ICC. ICC is the old name. Right now we call it as a BC, Business Center. Invoice Capture Center. ICC is called Invoice Capture Center. It is an older version where we used to deal up to 7.5 and 7.6. Now it's all BC now. New implementations all use BC. We directly call it a BC. BC only deals with ingestion and transformation. Here, business teams are not involved at all. It's only all the technical steps involved and then pretty much automation except the validation client. And then the BC work is completed, then it will push the document into SAP, where the rest of the business teams actually use the tool. So that's why it's into 2 pieces. Okay, and we talked about all the steps. And this is how the automated paper to post invoice management or any kind of channel we use. It's the same structure format and unstructured format. If here talk about Ariba, that's why they have removed the BC framework and directly putting into something like direct TDI or Ariba, which will directly create the VIM document irrespective of using the BC much. So the rest of the steps 3, 4, 5, and 6 are the same. 1 and 2 are clubbed and directly creating into the VIM solution instead of going through the BC framework to avoid too much of technical steps. That's the only difference we just wanted to highlight in these 2 slides. And now, I know we have been talking about the users, what kind of users you have, and everything. How many different user perspectives are there in a invoice flow? We'll talk about that. So generally we have SAP VIM end user or nothing but the business user who is going to deal who is going to use the tool in the production system, like the accounts payable team or the purchase order team or the tax team or any approvers or all those things. We'll consider the VIM end user or VIM processor, and you can simply say and who uses at the simplified version. Vim processor is nothing but like a who deals with the complex scenarios, primarily accounts payable. Rest we consider who are going to provide information. We consider them as the end user. Vim approver is who is just going to approve the documents in the system. And we have Vim administrator as well. Administrator is nothing but from the primarily there are two ways you can deal with, whether you can enable your business team to be admin to deal with that. Then we consider them as a super user, or from the IT, if you have a user in production, we deal with the workflow issues or anything related to them, then we call them as the Vim administrator. This is just a perspectives which we are going to do, and based on the user usage, we are going to provide a respective access or something like that. Like if you come to me and ask, except Vim approver, rest probably can use the Vim GUI tool, and approver can primarily use the Fiori tool, because Fiori for Vim solution, from my perspective, is not that great, because they're just pushing whatever the GUI screens onto the Vim Fiori screens, because they're not rebuilt except the Fiori approval process. Approval process is really great, and then you can use the approvals Fiori as well. But if you see as a processor or Vim end user, whether you run a GUI transaction or a Fiori transaction, it looks one and the same, because it's just only projection of that GUI screen onto the Fiori. Okay, so I think we talked about.
But apart from approval, we can validate from Fiori, right?
Yes, it's
Part validation does, yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, if you run the screen exactly looks one and the same in even in the GUI and the Fiori.
You're saying that they do look similar in terms of what do we say, the appearance.
Yes, I mean generally, if you see the Fiori architecture, how they are not completely implemented on all the apps from the Vim perspective. Like if you go to creation of a purchase order, just an example, or then the screen on the GUI looks completely different on the Fiori. It is more simplified version, and it will enable the windows or screen according to the data entered. But in the Vim, in the regular workplace or which we talk about, or it's the same one and the same. When you click on the document, it is going to show exactly on the GUI, but it will be on the Fiori app. And yeah. And this is the basic thing which I summarized in the previous slide. Vim end user who do perform day-to-day activities in invoice processes, like view the invoices or running the reports and trying to do documents or such, do the basic actions and access workflow tasks assigned to them. So this is the Vim basic end user. And the processor is a heavy user, where user with the role or responsibility for more invoice advanced process stocking. We have additional responsibility like perform all tasks assigned to Vim end users, handle exception discrepancies, and manage invoice discrepancies. Sometimes we can even say like accounts payable will have say end users as the regular users, and your team lead as a Vim processor who can have more access and everything, where he can perform all the activities. And approvers are primarily only our approver rejects the configured based on the configuration. It will go to them, and then it will try to approve them. They can either do it through the Vim screens or even in the Fiori. Right now, Fiori would be great for them because it will show the exact information like approve and reject buttons, and then with the information primarily like the amount, who is the vendor, and how much. When you want to see more data, you can click on a button, and then it will show the detailed line items and everything. Even if they can even see the document from the Fiori as well. And administrator, who is a IT team from that, who is going to configure parameters or manage workflows, user roles, permission. So Vim is like a minimal maintenance is required. For an example, accounts payable team, same example, like there are 10 guys, and now there are 2 more guys coming into the picture. Now you need to configure those 2 guys into the Vim, right? So that can be done through a Vim administrator. who has better access to add those tools. We are not going to provide that to everyone, right? So that's the reason we are going to have an administration and assume that business perspective or approver perspective that an approver has gone on leave and then you are not assigned a substitute. Then it will go and sit there, but someone you want to approve, then what will you do? You'll come to the administrator, you ask him to read out to some particular person run in the back end. So that kind of activities all will be there. Or if a person leaves an organization and the workflows, because you configure to that particular guy and it will go to them and it will sit sit along in that user box or get errored out because that SAP user is not there anywhere. Then someone has to go in the as a workflow administrator or a workflow or VIM administrator, you have to read out those work items and to the new user, and also replace that user from in your configuration from the VIM SAP roles into with the new user, right? So all these activities VIM administrator will be performing. And monitoring system performance is not really a big thing. Initially, once you deploy the solution, you can ask your basis to monitor few transactions every day for a week or 2 weeks, and then over a period of time, you can ask them to check once 2 weeks or something like that. And there is a BC framework you need to keep monitoring at least weekly once by your VIM administrator, because there can be chances that there can be error outs. Examples I'm giving you is the connectivity issues. Assume that the IES connection is gone. What BC framework does is it will just try to connect to the IES server, right? IES server, it is connecting and then IES is not there. So whatever is the reason, the system down or the connectivity issue or whatever it is, then the system tries and gets into error. Now somebody has to go manually and then restart the process for those kind of examples. This is just one example where we need to monitoring the BC. Otherwise, your invoice is generated, it got a tag and number got generated, but it is just sitting because it got errored out. BC is the only one we need to keep monitoring once in a while, like weekly once or something, if there are any others or something like that. Okay. And super user, this is more like enabling your business users with more additional functionalities, like whether it's either your IT team want to do, or you can enable some functionalities to them, like maintaining the users to the VIM roles. Like as I said, the same example, like VIM, people wanted 2 new users to be added. You can enable one of the lead as a super user where he can go and maintain that set of users instead of they raising it to SAP IT and IT team going and maintaining. It all line between the IT and the business user and how much flexibility are they going and all those things. So, and there are some system configuration settings and all those things, which is more from the basis, and all those things, those can be managed by some users as well. Okay. So these kind of things, like I have seen in one organization where the business team handles workflow activities itself. They don't have a workflow administrator as a workflow administrator in the SAP system itself. So we have enabled and SWIA, which is a technical transaction from the workflow perspective. Business team itself does that. That is all the organization's understanding and approvals, how much they want to deal with that kind of activities. Or you can have that control from the IT team itself where they want it. Okay, this is a standard process swimlane diagram, they call it. We'll talk about for 5 minutes and then we can discuss anything else till rest of the time, or we can see what we can do with the rest of the time. Okay, so we just covered on what's the VIM solution, what are the high-level technical components on the flow of the documents, how what are the basic accounts payable team challenges, how VIM handles them, how VIM benefits them, and all those things. And also we talked about the technical components, what's an archive server, what's an IES, what's the difference between the terminologies of IES, what's the validation kind, what's an enterprise scan, and what's the basic difference between the BC, what's the DC and the Vim solution, and how you deal with, and what are the different kinds of user perspectives there. This slide may be too early, but we'll try to talk about that in line so that we can get prepared for upcoming sessions. Okay. Why I have kept like this is basically Vim team or the Vim OpenText finally uses these kind of workflows whenever they talk during the implementation part. Okay. So this is a simple one exception. This slide represents only one exception. Here they are talking about the invalid date format or invalid invoice data. Okay, and once we see this slide, we can understand there are four Vim roles which we'll be dealing with, which is on the left-hand side. One is indexer, one is AP processor, one is vendor maintenance team, and one is buyer team. Okay, and whenever the exception is raised, which is nothing but P1, they call about it, and whenever this invalid invoice data gets triggered, it will automatically come to the default role of indexer. Okay, when it comes to the indexer, he will have these process options to click and take a respective action whenever this invalid invoice data has been raised. Okay, now enter index. For each process option, we have respective thing. Here it is saying back to metadata validation. Okay, and reapply business rule, have corrected the data, just verify the data again so that it will try to resolve the solution. Now the second one. Now the next is refer to AP processor. Now as an indexer, he has verified the data, but he wants more information and he's trying to send it to the AP processor. And when it says B, you can see here B. Now the workflow item for the same exception, it has come to the AP processor, and AP processor for this exception, he has a set of buttons again. These are called process option. Don't worry, we are going to read about this again in the next 2-3 days heavily. Just trying to prepare. There is this kind of information coming up in the next few days, so that we'll talk about it. Now, back to the slide. In the AP processor, he sees he can do any one of these things. Okay, he can verify the data and refer back to the indexer, which you will see the same data, or he can send again to a different set of users. Either he can send to vendor maintenance, or refer to buyer, or forward to other AP processor for action. Okay, or you can send it to refer to others. That is a generic button available where you can send to anyone in your organization who has VIM access or SAP access, so that they can provide who are not part of this any of these roles, 4 roles. Okay. So this is a kind of loop until the reapply business rule happen in any of these actions. Okay. So if you see here, your indexer and the AP processor can do the reapply business rules, but these guys, vendor maintenance and buyers cannot. They don't have this button at all. Okay. So they can each user or a Vim role, based on which Vim role they have different set of buttons. Okay. Now, if I come to the example on what it is there, whenever an invoice comes in, it says invalid invoice data. Now, in the invoice data, it can be invalid vendor or anything. It's a generic statement here, but I'm assuming that say the vendor number is invalid, whether the vendor identified and the vendor data is not matching, then the indexer can directly send to vendor maintenance team with comments saying that, hey, come here. And when it comes to them, he would have kept some comments saying that, hey, some of the bank data is not matching from our vendor master on the information on the invoice. Now, vendor maintenance team can do two things. Whether he can say that's okay, you can skip that and go ahead, or he can change the vendor master because they have a new vendor information. Again, there are 2 things. Again, for vendor master change, it's a master data. It can be a different set of rules in each organization. They can trigger that process, or they can talk to the vendor. Is that a new bank data you are asking us to do the payments, or should we continue to the old data? And then it all depends on talking to them. And then vendor maintenance can send it back to the buyer saying, hey, we see this discrepancy. What do you want to do? And the buyer team can say, hey, he can talk to the vendor and send it back to the indexer saying that please continue in the old vendor master data for the maintenance. So these kind of buttons and collaboration and everything can be achieved through this tool or the VIM solution. So this, if you see this slide, when we are building a VIM solution and designing, SAP OpenText kind of gives this kind of slides. So for one exception, you seeing this, you can understand what kind of different VIM roles are there, and for each role and exception combination, what are all the process options available. And this is all you are going to capture during your design sessions as well, like what information you want to see and what user role can have, what kind of information, so that you can, during your design process, you capture all this information and translate into the swim lane diagrams. And these swim lane diagrams can be converted into the technical design documents or everything. So this is about the swim lane process diagram, and there will be one big overall diagram because the rest of the process is same. The swim lane process is each different for each exception. Otherwise, the rest of the process is same, like it will come into the BC framework. If you put into a flow diagram, it will be same across all your customers because there is no change, right? Except you are going to say, this will be the new email ID for this customer. This will be email ID for your customer. Otherwise, it will be the flow diagram will be the same across all the customers. There is no change. And you only decide on what channels you are going to configure, right? The email channel is there. And some customers may not use paper invoices at all. And some customers may use, some customers doesn't use a report. So like that. But Simline is the only flow diagram to see a lot of differences and try to capture this information during the design process. So any questions on this particular Simline diagrams? If you didn't understand this, once we talk about in the next 2-3 days, it will come to more clarity and what this diagram. This is the foundation. When we are installing the VIM solution, previously it used to be one software which used to install. Now it has been split into two. Assume that you want to use the foundation is mandatory for across any of the solution. Now, once the foundation is installed, whether you can also select which piece of the solution you want to install. Like you don't want to use the VIM, but you want to use the OTC, then you can only install the OTC piece as well as a friend. And you can use the this is invoice management. I don't know what's the difference between these two, but it's same to me. Okay, so there are different components, but whenever the installation, your basis will know what's a foundation and what's a invoice solution. So on the foundation bit, the invoice solution will be sitting on the top of that. For us as a VIM consultant, we only worry about the VIM solution piece. For approval process, which application we use in Fiori, we'll talk about. There are 4 or 5 Fiori apps, and primarily we use 2 Fiori apps, and the third Fiori app also is coming there, which is the validation client. Previously, validation client used to be separate standalone Windows application. Right now, they have integrated that into the Fiori as well. Depending on which version you are using, the Fiori may be available in the validation client may be available in the Fiori app. Yes, so there is a approval app, SAP VIM approval app that is used for approval process, and one is exception app. So that is another where you will be dealing with the exception. There is a report as well, analytics report, the same thing, whether you use GUI and here it doesn't matter, it's the same approval in the Fiori apps. So these are the 4 apps, and there is a 5th app called exception price discrepancy app, which is used only for Fiori, but I'm never implemented that piece there. But if it's required, then we can talk about that as well.
For the VIM approval in Fiori application, So we are currently facing an issue that it is not displaying the image, whereas in the GUI environment it is good. And also for Vim Workplace, for few countries it is working, and for few countries the image is not loading. So we are in a situation that whether is it related to the network side, something that they need to fix it, or from theory application side that we need to fix.
Working for one country and it's not working for a different country.
Yeah, for Vim Workplace it is working fine for in GUI, whereas in theory we are facing this.
If we want to display the image in Fiori app, the one which you generally use in Fiori to upload the invoice, do we need to make any configuration related to image to display the image in approval app?
Is it happening for like Bharat was highlighting country specific issue, or is it not happening at all?
For approval, it is for all the countries.
It is for all.
Irrespective of country, yeah, then nothing from our side. Generally, it's basis has to get me involved. Can you try searching around? There was one note with the specific thing, and the basis has to, or basis, or it will be on the archive server, or it will be, they have to do some setting from the basis way. It's not from the IT. I mean, from the consultant, it's not a consulting issue, but it's more like the basis issue. Can you try searching for it and then fact it? Or raise the ticket to SAP itself, they will just refer back to the same note saying that, hey, implement this.
Okay. So coming to this question, so we don't need any other configuration to display the image. So do we need to add any certification with respect to this invoice approval app, or
No.
if we maintain for workplace, it works for same?
Generally, it should work for the same. It's not a consulting issue. It's more like a basis issue. And
okay. So coming to the first question, what is so as you already answered, we are not going to cover any foundation
yes,
trainings, but we will be discussing on capture profile maintenance and how. Okay, that will be covered, right?
this will be covered. And from the Vim perspective,
but we were not discussing more into this sales order configuration. That we are not helping you out, right?
No.
Okay. So you have already told that we generally have 200 or 300 process exception which are being given by SAP, right? So few of them are functional function module based process exception. If I want to know what like how function modules are derived, what's inside the function module, what it takes to raise an exception, where do I get those information, Shiva?
So there are two things. One is whenever you're trying to implement the Vim, there is one document which comes from the SAP OpenText documentation, which is called reference document.
Reference guide.
Yeah, reference guide. So you got a chance ever to look into the reference guide? And
no, I don't have reference guide, but we have configuration guide.
No, yeah. Along with that configuration guide, there is something called reference guide, because you already have a customer, right? I'm assuming. So you have their SID, obviously, one of your team member, either your basis or yourself as, right? You download all the guides from that using user ID, and probably you can take this as activity. And if you can get those documents, I'll explain each document, because I don't have access to. I know what are all the documents will be there, but I cannot download because I don't have a user ID.